We are here doing the fifth video for our ethics series. Thank you so much for hanging tight with us. This is the conclusion of it, and we're going to hit you with some ethical dilemmas and talk about how to handle those as a social worker. So the objective here is just really to explore some common ethical dilemmas that we're faced with and how you can apply the NASW Code of Ethics to these real world situations. What happens when two core social work values conflict with one another? Or when an agency policy clashes with the client's well-being? That's what we call an ethical dilemma. And they're some of the toughest challenges that we will face as a social worker. Today, we'll be diving into real-life ethical dilemmas and how to apply the NASW Code of Ethics to resolve them. Ethical dilemmas happens when our values, our policies, and our clients' needs conflict with one another. And it's our job to find balance that upholds both the code and our clients' well-being. When we're faced with these two conflicting obligations, it's difficult sometimes to make the right decision and know what exactly to do. These dilemmas arise from competing values. So we have this social work code of ethics, and there's certain values in there. And then sometimes those values can clash. And that is how we have these ethical dilemmas that come about. So say you're advocating for social justice for a client, but then you're also trying to adhere to your agency rules. What do you do? What if your client needs a service from your agency, but your agency can't provide it, but it's critical for their well-being? What do you do? These are considered ethical dilemmas. Conflict of interest. So when you're working with an agency and there's a client that personally has some things that need to be addressed, or you have an outside business with them, that can be a conflict of interest and that can cause problems. What about an agency versus a client? You know that a client needs services from your agency, but your agency doesn't provide it. However, the policy with your agency prevents you from referring them out to other people who can provide that service. Another dilemma is client competence versus safety. Say you have a client with a mental health illness and they want to make some decisions you believe can put them in danger. You have to figure out here, is a client competent enough to know right from wrong and they need to utilize self-determination? Or is the client not competent enough to know this and you need to jump in and advocate or assist or refer or do some type of intervention because now the client's safety is being jeopardized? These are very common things that happen all the time in the world of social work. As an active clinical supervisor, I work with people that work in all different type of branches of social work, and they're faced with ethical dilemmas all the time. I have a lot of previous people that I've supervised that are dealing with conflicts within their practices or agencies, and they're trying to figure out the right thing to do. So these are all considered ethical dilemmas, and they can be really tough to navigate and to address. So I'm going to give you a framework here that I want you to utilize. So whether you're taking a test, whether you're dealing with a client, this is the framework I want you to utilize. Think of the word ethic. When you're faced with ethical dilemmas, it's helpful to use the structured decision-making framework. We're going to call it the ethic model. So E is examine. So in that situation, you're going to look at all the relevant personal, societal, agency, client, and professional values. You're going to just examine all of that. And then you're going to move on to T, think. You're going to think about the code of ethics and any other legal or agency rules. So if you're working for an agency and they have their rules and guidelines, you're going to think about what those are when you're trying to make this decision. And then you have the H. So we're going to hypothesize possible consequences based on the decisions you make. So if you go this way, what could be the likely outcome? If you go this way, what could be the likely outcome? And then we're going to move on to the I, which is identify. We're going to identify who will be helped and who might be harmed. So again, remember in the ethical dilemma, sometimes you're faced with someone being harmed. So in this situation, you want to look at the overall process and the overall situation. Who's going to be helped and who's going to be harmed can determine how you make that decision. And then the last one is C, consult with supervisors and colleagues. That is a must. absolute must. Consultation and supervision is key. Never hesitate to consult with your supervisor or colleagues when you're dealing with these ethical dilemmas. Ethical dilemmas may often be looked at as a team effort because you're going to need other people to jump in to assist and to guide you when you're trying to maneuver and make certain decisions. And always getting a second perspective can help you stay on track and make sure that you're making the right decisions overall. Looking at the ethic framework, we have E for correct, examine. We have T, think. We have H, hypothesize. We have I, identify. And we have C, consult. You got it. So think about that. When you're making a decision, make sure you utilize this ethical decision making framework because it's going to help you make the right decision and know how to move forward and handle things. So last but not least, let's focus on this last case scenario in this series and let's talk about it. And then I'll let you know what we can do next. So you're a social worker at a community agency and a client who is uninsured needs long-term therapy. However, your agency policy limits you to short-term interventions. How would you handle this situation while staying true to the NASW Code of Ethics? So again, in this situation, you're going to use the ethics framework and you're going to look at the totality of the situation. So we know what's going on. We're going to examine first the situation at hand. Then we're going to think about how the agency rules might conflict with the NASW Code of Ethics. In this case, it didn't say that you couldn't refer out. It just said that your agency had a policy on how many sessions you can do. And this person needs long-term. So that's something that you have to think about. So hypothesize the possible consequences. So if you refer the client out, what could possibly happen? If you keep the client, what will happen? And then you have to identify who you're going to help in this situation and who's going to be harmed. You're going to help him overall by getting the services he needs and putting him in contact with other referral sources that can do exactly what's needed. Or will he be harmed because he needs this long-term treatment and we're not able to refer them out or to give him the assistance and the support that they may need? That's when you need to figure out. And then once you identify that, then you can consult with your supervisor, your colleagues, if you just can't make a decision and you feel like you might not be able to think clearly in deciding what's best for this client. So thank you so much for sticking around with us throughout this series, the NASW Code of Ethics. Again, it wasn't meant to be hard. There's a lot in ethics. We didn't cover everything, but we covered the common terms, the common things that you're going to be faced with when you're taking the test and when you're working with clients and dealing with ethical dilemmas. Please remember, when it comes to ethics, it isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. So stay thoughtful, intentional, and always seek guidance whenever it's needed. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, make sure you tell a friend, and make sure you send this video to someone else that may can use the help and support so they can pass their exam, and make sure they put ethics first. It's great talking to you guys and helping you guys out during this series. If it's something else you want more information on or elaboration on, please make sure you hit us up in the comment section. Until the next one, you have an amazing day.